And we're live. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It is week 6 of the NFL, where you're here to talk DFS for the main slate, week 6. And I'm not going to lie, Bellman, it's hard to keep track of all the schedules with all these sports going lately. I just found out there's no Thursday night football game this week. And after getting Tuesday football, it's like a little kick to the nuts right there. I like having football every day.
Well, I found out more recent than you because you just informed me there's no Thursday night football tomorrow. So yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, I mean, I know we got a lot of sports going right now, and it's fine because we got MLB playoffs rocking and rolling. We just lost in the NBA, but like I'm always pumped for Thursday night football. I'll have to find something else to do with my time. Maybe I'll have to watch a little bit more baseball.
Yeah, I mean, who isn't always pumped about Thursday night football? It's almost like the key. It's almost like the I don't know what the word I'm looking for, where the weekend's coming. You know?
I gotcha. I gotcha. I'm always fired up, even though the games usually kind of stink. Like I always want it to be there. So in the meantime, though, we got some baseball to rock. We got week 6 main slate to really look forward to. I think we got some weird scheduling on the back half of the schedule for next week as well, just with COVID messing up things. It's going to be a little bit of an interesting year like it hasn't already been. So one of the things I want to bring up before we get into the actual plays, now that we don't have 3 sports going simultaneously, it's a little bit easier to be active on social media. And one of the things I've been doing the last couple of days, I'm going to continue to do this, is to feature these videos pinned to my Twitter profile and give out free stuff to people that retweet it. So what we're going to do for this main slate video, when I'm done with it, I'm going to post it to the top of my Twitter profile. 1 out of 10 people who retweets it, so 10%, a very solid ratio, will get both the video, the final thought members only video that comes on Saturday, and the actual write-up sent to them this week. Those usually come out late on Saturday, so you got plenty of time to prep for week 6. Just go retweet it. All you have to do is press one button.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. I would do it if I wasn't partners with you at the 5-pack.
Yeah, it makes it. It probably doesn't pay off for you, but I get what you're saying on that one. Makes a lot of sense, my friend. All right, guys, we keep bringing it up, and we'll keep talking about it. The matchup shop is amazing over at Overlay. I got some good money going on Urias today, so maybe putting a few too many eggs in that basket. I've already started talking about the football stuff. We will get into first thoughts on the tournaments on this after that, or maybe a little bit later on today or tomorrow at some point. But if you haven't signed up already, the matchup shot is just gaining steam on a daily basis. I'm taking almost as many questions there as I am on DK right now. It's a really easy way to get skin in the game, and it's exciting. Like I know you and I have discussed it at nauseum lately. Like we both have a lot of irons in the fire, and I'm sure most of you guys are the same thing, that you never really know who you're rooting for or rooting against. I enjoy the simplicity of just being able to know I'm rooting for player A and rooting against player B.
I'm with you 100%. I love that part about it.
Right? You guys, most of you viewers are probably with us, and some of you guys maybe even to more extent where you're playing on DK, FanDuel, Overlay. You got 9-year-long fantasy football leagues. It's tough to be like, well, I want Aaron Rodgers, and as a Packer fan, to throw for 270, but not 290.
Yeah, I mean, and that also plays into part in like what your goal is in DFS. Like if your goal is to like become a professional DFS player, you have to throw that stuff out the window. If your goal is to just have fun, doesn't really matter. But yes, I 100% agree with you. That's a big problem with DFS, is not knowing who to root for, having this much exposure to this guy, not this much to this guy. I'm with you. It's a headache, and this makes it so much more simpler.
Right? Like for today, I'm pro Urias, anti-Granky, rock and roll, let's rock. All those things are available through the website. The link is below. If you don't mind, if you could do us all a favor for the free info we give and just click the thumbs up button today, I would sincerely appreciate it. Subscribe if you're new to it. Let's start with the quarterback position. So quarterback is as loaded this week as it has been in a lot of the weeks prior. There is no Patrick Mahomes. Lamar Jackson has been slumping all year long. Kyler Murray's not on the slate. So we are without a lot of those dual threat quarterbacks that have been breaking slates left and right. So let's go to a wily veteran, a guy who, he can run it a little bit, but he isn't out there scrambling left and right. And that is the Detroit Lions gunslinger, Matthew Stafford, priced at 6,300, up against the Jacksonville Jaguars team. It seems like they're 38 years removed now from that killer defense they had a couple seasons back. Because right now, their defense is hot garbage, along with a good portion of their team. The Jags' pass defense is it's well below average. There's no other two ways about it. The nice part about Stafford, though, too, is like their run game for the Lions, not great. Their defense, pretty crappy, which means he's always in a position where he has to throw. His price point is fair. He's coming off of a bye, which I know you as a sports bettor, is that something you can always get down with. Less than stellar options at QB this week. This is one of my favorite plays for quarterback.
And I think, and we've talked about this the past few weeks, Jacksonville is awful. And I still don't think people are, I don't want to say giving them credit, but realizing and recognizing how bad Jacksonville is. I think Jacksonville they're right there with the Jets potentially as the worst team in football. They're better.
Whoa. Do not insult any of the other 31 teams by comparing them to the Jets.
They are better than the Jets, but they got that fraudulent win week 1 against Indy. They were really outplayed that entire game. And they've looked pretty shitty since then. They did not look good last week. This is a great spot for Detroit, who I think is the better football team. Detroit doesn't go into many games, as the definite better team. This is one of them. They're off a bye. I like their offense. We'll get into another one of their pieces in a bit. Man, Stafford was going to be was one of the guys I was considering sending to you, so happy you brought him up.
Well, you want to know what? I did things a little bit out of order this week, my friend, because you sent me another Detroit Lion. I almost called him a tiger, but that's the wrong kind of big jungle cat. We are going to move over to the guy that you did send me, which is somebody else that I like a lot, and that is pairing Kenny Golladay with Matthew Stafford. And quite honestly, guys, I think you can run either of these dudes naked, or I think you can run them together. Run it however you want. I like them both. Hey, both have really, really high probabilities to make my main lineup on DraftKings this week. Kenny Golladay is really, really good. I know that's something that you bring up a lot. And while a lot of other guys in the industry want to talk about stats and numbers, and he can do this, he can do that, sometimes we forget about the simple fact that this guy is just flat out good at the game of football. There's nobody on the Jags that I feel like has a great chance to stop him. He's a red zone focal point. Give me some Kenny Golladay in my life.
Yeah, I think this could be the breakout game that we've kind of been wanting all year. Man, he missed the first 2 games and has been productive in the past 2. But now I really think with that bye week, him and Stafford are going to be on the same page. Very affordable at 6,200. All the points I just brought up about the Jacksonville, and the Jaguars defense certainly applies for Golladay here too. He's very good. He's a definite number 1 wideout. I still don't think the mainstream people, the public opinion of him is necessarily that. But he is that. I think this is a game where Detroit could score a lot of points. I have interest in a few pieces of their offense, but certainly Golladay and Stafford are the 2 at the top of the list.
Yeah, so the main 2 pieces for me, I think this game overall has some appeal because that was one of the nice parts about Golladay and Stafford is Detroit's defense is also bad, which means that people score against them, which means they have to throw. And they can't run the ball very well. So give me plenty of Stafford, give me plenty of Golladay, pair them together, run them separately. I don't really care. That is up to you how you play it, but we like both dudes a lot.
Amen.
All right, next up. So let's talk about Dalvin Cook's twin brother, Mattison. And I just want to reiterate, if by some off chance they play Dalvin Cook here, which I find to be extremely unlikely, since they basically come out and say he's out this week. I know he's got a questionable tag next to him, but I'm with you. I think the odds of Cook playing this week are somewhere between slim and none, and Slim's packing up and trying to ride out of town right now. So there's so many things to like about Mattison. Atlanta is all-time bad versus pass-catching running backs, and while Minnesota hasn't used their running backs to catch enough passes yet this year, that doesn't mean that won't hold true this week against an Atlanta team who for years now cannot defend running backs out of the backfield. Atlanta's defense is really, really bad. And one of the other things I like about Mattison that might go a little bit under the radar this week is Cook is supposed to be back after the bye. That means I don't think they have any problem giving Mattison 30 touches this week if that's how it lines up.
I love that point. We talk about that in basketball a lot, when a guy is making a spot starter, when, a certain guy is going to be hurt for a week and that guy's not going to be needed for more than that period of time. Well, I'm with you 100%. Kind of like we talked about with Golladay also. Mattison is good. He's underrated because he's a quote-unquote backup. Well, he's only a backup because Dalvin Cook's a top 3 running back in football. I mean, I think you can make the argument Mattison, we don't know because he doesn't get enough touches, could potentially be a top 15 guy. He looks good whenever I turn on the TV. As we've mentioned multiple times, he looks like Dalvin Cook out there. And I know that he's got the same haircut and, obviously the same jerseys and they look alike, but I mean, most guys that were out there, even if you gave them the same haircut, et cetera, would not look like Dalvin Cook. That's all I'll say.
I played running back in high school, but if you gave me that haircut and that jersey, and not just because of the skin color, I don't look like Dalvin Cook.
Right.
Why? Because I'm a slow old guy. He looks like Dalvin Cook in every sense of the word. He's a good player. The last bullet point right there, you kind of touched on already. He's good enough to be the starting running back. I'll say this. if he was on the Denver Broncos, I think he's just as good, if not better, than Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay.
I think he's better than them right now. And another point for him that I like kind of goes along with your, this is not an every week thing. They really like him in Minnesota. Like, he's a guy, even with Cook, they give a lot of touches to. So without Cook, I mean, this is like a showcase game for him.
Absolutely. And what do you think about the price point? Do you think this will keep some people off of him?
I do. I mean, I still think he's going to get owned because we're not we're not the only ones that recognize he's freaking good.
Yeah, and I mean, everybody knows Atlanta's trash too. It could not set up for him. Like, if he's trying to strut his stuff, it's like a 30 DK point game, and maybe kind of go on the map nationwide to maybe people who don't watch things quite as closely. Like, I'm an NFC North guy because I'm a Green Bay Packers fan. Lived in Minneapolis for a decade, so I watch the Vikings pretty closely so I can root against them. I think this is the week where he breaks out, and a lot of people recognize just how good he is.
I'm with that.
All right, next up, speaking of the NFC North, let's talk about a young man by the name of David Montgomery, who was priced at $5,800 this week for the Chicago Bears. So I think first and foremost, the Panthers' run defense is terrible. I think we all know this. You talked me into Gurley last week, and then I went heavy on him, and you didn't play him. It's funny how those things work. I know it's worked the opposite way plenty of times where I've brought somebody up, and you won money with him, and I didn't have him in any of my lineups. So it was good to have a little bit of the role reversal last week because Todd Gurley did me real well on overlay, and he was good in the DraftKings lineup. I used him in as well. Carolina's not good against the run. I expect this to be a close competitive game. And one of the other important points right here is in the two games where Nick Foles has been there and there's been no Tariq Cohen, he has 50% more targets than the combined first three games where there was Mitch Trubisky and Tariq Cohen. This means better for his PPR points. That makes him a little bit more game script proofed. And while I expect this to be a close game, it's nice to know that no matter what the game script is, he's going to have a role.
Who do you think wins this game?
My head says Chicago. My heart says Carolina.
Chicago wins this game, I think.
Okay. I do think it's competitive, though. I definitely see Chicago winning this game 23-20.
Yeah, I think it's competitive. Maybe on the lower scoring side. I think that Montgomery, there's a couple pieces from this game I think are in play, but Montgomery stands out. I love your point about the targets. And, again, no Tariq Cohen. He's getting a ton of carries. I know there's been rumors today. I've seen a lot of them about Le'Veon Bell potentially going to Chicago. Well, that's not going to be happening this week, so I'm with you on Montgomery here.
Le'Veon Bell just isn't that good anymore. There's a reason nobody's wanted to trade for him for 2 years. He's a headache in the lock. I wouldn't want him if I was the Chicago Bears. And I know what you're thinking. You remember the guy from a couple of years ago. He hasn't looked good. Guy hasn't had a run longer than 15 yards in what feels like centuries at this point. I wouldn't personally want him. He's a headache. He seems to be, cancer to a locker room and everything like that. So I'll stick with David Montgomery and Cordarrelle Patterson at this point. So
I think, but just to that point, though, the reason teams didn't trade for him was because of his huge contract and knowing that he'd probably get released. He will get picked up by someone.
Somebody will, and I bet you they regret it.
We'll see. I mean, the Jets have been known to people have been known to be good once they leave the Jets, et cetera, though. I'll say that.
Yeah, I said it's the same thing, though. We haven't seen him good in a few years now. He had a whole bad year last year. He's been bad this year. He took the year off before that. Running back's a tough position, and these guys get their butts whooped. And sometimes, maybe you just lose it after a while. He was never the fastest or the strongest guy to begin with, just had incredible vision. Well, I'm sure the vision is still there, but maybe he's just not, the young stud he once was.
Maybe he's in a bad situation right now,
Well, he definitely is that.
Yes, exactly. Maybe that's why he's played so bad. Maybe it's a combination of both. I'm interested to find out.
I was listening to an interesting argument about him, literally half hour before we got on here. And it was that it wasn't just that the Jets are terrible, and you know how terrible I think the Jets are. It's that if you took an average running back and put him in his position, through all the analytic nerd stuff that you could possibly think of, they're almost twice as good as the results he's given. He got fat and happy after his contract.
Who, Le'Veon?
Yeah.
I haven't heard that from anywhere.
It was just a pure coincidence. I happened to catch that on the YouTube as I was cleaning up the house. And I don't even know who the guys were that were talking about it, but his name came to the forefront due to recent events over the past 36 hours or whatever it have been. So
I know it's a different situation, but I also remember you saying that like Alvin Kamara had lost it too, and he looks like
he
the
looks
best
good.
football. So you never know. I mean, these guys like Le'Veon Bell was the best running back in football 3 years ago. Will he get back to that point? Maybe not, but I'm not going to go as far as to say he's like absolutely done when the Jets are ruining careers left and right.
Well, I will say this. Where he goes, it's a better situation than playing for the New York Football Jets.
Yes, and even more important than that, even if he lands in Chicago, it's not going to be this weekend, and I love your Montgomery call.
That's a fair point. I mean, we're not sneaking up on anybody here by talking about using running backs against Carolina. That's something he knows at this point, but that doesn't make it not true this week.
Fair.
All right, let's talk about a former Bear and one that I feel that it's possible we might see a little bit differently. So I thought it could be an interesting conversation. A guy that I'm looking at the tight end position this week is former Bear, former Eagle, Trey Burton, tight end for the Indianapolis Colts. So all the numbers trend towards him being the number one tight end in Indiana right now. Over Mo Alley Cox, over Jack Doyle. And I get it. There's a lot of people who like Cox and his athleticism. I know you really like what he brings to the table because he's kind of like a freaky athlete. However, he's also maybe not even going to be playing this week. He's listed as questionable with a knee injury. He's been having trouble practicing. And Jack Doyle just seems to be the odd man out at this point. However, the Colts like Burton. So even if like I like Doyle and you like Cox, the Colts seem pretty dead set on Burton being the featured tight end at this point. In the 2 games back, he's averaging 5.5 targets per game. He's only 3,100, so he's very low risk at this point. This is a guy that is supposed to have like emerged as like a better tight end for years now. We've never seen it come to fruition. Maybe that's part of being in Chicago with Mitch Trubisky. Maybe he's not as good as people thought. I don't really know, but we do know Phillip Rivers is thrown to his tight ends a lot. And because they're playing the Bengals, they should have plenty of red zone opportunities right here. So I wanted to get your thoughts on this one because I thought it was one that we hadn't discussed a lot.
Well, I don't think that like Jack Doyle or Mo Alley Cox are guys that like can't be unseated for the number one tight end role starting off. So
that's a really fair point.
Like, I'm with you. I think that Alley Cox is like that athlete that can, get up and make those rebounding type catches. Doyle's a consistent guy, but especially with Frank Wright, the head coach of Indy here, who had Burton, when he was at his best. I'm with you. I had heard the same stuff I think you did last week, going in, that they were really excited to get him back. I mean, listen, he's 3,100. So that price point alone puts him in play, and I like the call. I don't disagree with it. I'm not maybe as high on him as you are, but I don't disagree with it like at all.
Yeah, I mean, a big part of this, he's really, really cheap. There's a couple of upper like echelon. Like a lot of the guys that we like in the running back and wide receiver mode this week are mid to upper tier. So you're going to need to spend down somewhere. And it's possible there's going to be some better tight ends in the 4 to 5K range. There's another guy that's going to be popular right over 5K. This gives you an extra $2,000 that you can spend somewhere else. And I like picking guys against bad defenses since he's a bad defense. Indy needs a win after last week. I think he's got a good opportunity to at least get some red zone looks. Now, if they're going to capitalize, I have no idea. Phillip Rivers isn't as good as he once was. Obviously, they're always trying to run the ball, against a team like the Bengals. But at 3,100, it's low risk. And I like it better if Mo Alley Cox is out. I don't know if he's going to play or if he's not. He seems to be firmly questionable. I think you can play Burton no matter what for all the reasons that we both said. But, of course, I'm going to like it better if Cox is out.
Yeah, of course. And honestly, I really like that he's picked up by a guy that had him when he was at his best. Like,
I mean, that's a great point.
Like, that's a big reason why they were excited to get him. I mean, the more I think about it, the more I really like this call. Like, he had, like you said, 6 targets last week, more double what Doyle and Cox had combined. I'm definitely about this, like 100%.
Good. I wasn't sure because I know you're. Ooh, that almost sounded dirty. I was about to say you were a fan of Cox, but we don't even know. Like, he clears like there's really seems to be issues with his knee. So even if he's in there, expect Burton to be the number one tight end. And like I think we both always kind of respected Jack Doyle, but he really seems to have lost his luster over in Indy. I love the points that you keep bringing up because it wasn't even something I was thinking about a ton when I was picking him out. But it just is another like bullet in the gun right now of why I like him.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like all these points. So I agree that tight end seems like a spend down position too. They got priced. They changed up their pricing a bit, and guys are priced up all over.
Right, and I will reiterate that again. Only 3,100, very low risk. To pay off a salary like this, a 15-yard touchdown is your only catch, and you're fine, right? Like if you can go for 6 for 50 and a touchdown, that's great value.
This is a good spot for Indy. I think that's the other most important thing. Like, since he sucks.
Yeah, and they're coming off kind of a bad game. Like, maybe it's good Cleveland, but they did not play well last week. So you expect a hard week of practice and for them to come out and, kind of give their best effort right here.
You'd think that they would roll in this spot. Doesn't mean it'll happen, but you'd kind of think so.
Well, we talked about this last week. I think the Colts are kind of fraudulent because at this point of his career, I'm just not a big Phillip Rivers believer.
Yeah, he's been awful. I was just reading about that. Since the beginning of last year, he's thrown 16 interceptions, and he's third in the NFL in turnovers behind our boys Daniel Jones and Jameis Winston.
Well, I mean, you heard it right there. I think there's a number of things fraudulent about the Colts offense. For me, T.Y. Hilton has seen better days, but also he doesn't pair very well for the skill set of Phillip Rivers. Jonathan Taylor, I got a little excited about him when he took over the job. He played for, I'm from a Wisconsin guy. He played for the Wisconsin Badgers. But nothing about what I've watched out of him has been overly inspiring. So I think this offense is going to struggle a little bit at times. Now, this is a good week against Cincinnati, but I struggle to picture the Colts beating good teams down the stretch.
I'm with that. I think that this is a good chance for them to play well, but I agree with you. I could not agree more. I think they're going to struggle to beat good teams, and hopefully that was the case last week because they did not play well against Cleveland, and I'm hoping that it had a lot to do with Cleveland.
Man, I mean, it's got to be tough for you as a Browns fan to get excited knowing that your heart has been dashed repeatedly over the past couple of decades. But I think you have a lot of reasons to be encouraged by your team right now. And I think the hiring of Stefanski was literally the opposite of the Kitchens, who was the wrong hire. Like, you got it way wrong, and now it looks like you got it way right.
Yeah. We haven't really beat anyone yet, and we did get rolled by Baltimore week 1. But
first game, no preseason. Come on.
Baltimore's still the better team. All I want this week is, you're not going to win every game. I get that. The Browns are underdogs here. I want this to be a competitive game. I want them to play well here, which for a long time, wasn't happening in these spots forever.
Yeah, the Steelers are good. And if the Browns lose by a touchdown this weekend, I don't think it's any reason to abandon ship. The Steelers are a good football team. Probably the reason they haven't lost yet. They have a good quarterback. Not as good as he once was, but that's age and attrition. They have good skill position players. They have a really good defense. I don't really expect the Browns to win this game. However, if you guys come out victorious, I'm not flabbergasted by that. I like what this Browns team is selling. And once you get your boy Chubb back, who to me is a really, really good runner of the football, you're going to be even more dangerous. Seems like things trending in the right direction. I think you have reasons to be happy.
Yeah, I of course agree with that. And it is, I don't live and die by this, but the Browns are only 3.5-point underdogs in Pittsburgh. This has got to be the smallest, point line in Pittsburgh they've had in years at least.
So you know what that means? It's basically a pick 'em, right? Like if it wasn't for the fact the game's in Pittsburgh, they look at these teams as really, really even.
Which is pretty remarkable if you think about it.
Yeah, and I still think we're trying to figure out how good Pittsburgh is. They seem to be really good, but they don't have any signature wins yet.
No, it seems like they're definitely better than Cleveland, though. It seems that way. Well,
it does because defense travels, and their defense is really good.
And also, it's the Steelers versus the Browns. Just you got to give them the benefit of the doubt for the past 20 years because even though this year's different, we've seen it before.
I did a Twitter poll the other week. What's the greatest franchise of all time for the NFL? And I posted the Patriots, which I think won, but a lot of that to me is recency bias. The Steelers,
especially
my Packers
on Twitter, younger
absolutely.
People, go ahead.
Yeah. My Packers, and I forget who the fourth team was, but I thought those were the top 3 teams you could make a good argument for. Patriots on recency bias, and they're just the most dominant 2 decades. Steelers for everything that they've done throughout the Super Bowl era. And then the Packers for just being one of the, basically helping to put the NFL on the map. But a lot of that's so long ago that unless you know about even the pre-Super Bowl era, it would be difficult for them to get votes. But, it's an interesting question. The Steelers are a model franchise.
On that same token, the Browns should be on that list because they dominated before pre-Super Bowl. But as your list goes, I think the Steelers are the team.
Yeah, it would be difficult for me to even vote for my own team, even with the recency bias of being a Packers guy, to not say that the Steelers are class personified, the team of the NFL. And I do, even though like I want to make a case for my Packers, and I have to go back to the years leading up to the Super Bowl as well. Like I do give a little bit more credit to the current Super Bowl era than anything from before that. And the Steelers are class personified. There's a great, well-run franchise.
Yeah, one of the best franchises in all sports for sure.
They are the St. Louis Cardinals of the NFL.
It's funny, like after all that, like the Le'Veon Antonio Brown, like as they sit here today, Le'Veon and AB are free agents, and the Steelers are 4-0. Who would have thought? Like
that says a lot to me.
Yeah, even remember like a couple years ago, 2 years ago, we'd be talking about the Steelers. Like, man, who are they without Le'Veon Bell and AB? Like, that's like their two best players by far. Like they, like clearly, like they have not missed a beat.
Yeah, you guys need us more than we need you, which again, NFL is a lot about how a franchise is run. You look at franchises that are run right. The Patriot way has been, kind of the thing for the last 2 decades, deservedly so. The Steelers, like, really, like, go back throughout your life. What was the longest down period of the Steelers? Like 2 years? Like, they're always right there.
And also, I can never remember the Steelers being like 2-14. Like the Browns have been. Like, I cannot remember ever. I mean, I'm sure it's happened, but the Steelers having less than like 5 wins in a season, which seems like for most teams, I mean, a lot of teams can't get out of that cycle.
No, and they're always right there and competitive, which, really speaks to, you got to bring that up to ownership more than anything. I love the saying that you brought up maybe a year ago when you said, like, basketball is all about the players, right? Like, you can take a crappy coach, but if you put LeBron James or Michael Jordan on the team, they're going to win games. Baseball is all about the front office. I need to get low-dollar guys, especially for small market franchises, right? Tampa, perfect example. And then football is all about, like, the coach and like how it's set up. And you got to love the fact that the Steelers have had, 3 coaches over the last 900 years?
Yeah, and I feel like the coach, like to your point, is a what's the word I'm looking for? A representation of the owner in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? So like the Steelers are good from top to bottom.
And then you look at teams that are always perpetually bad. The Washington Redskins for the last 30 years, like, I mean, Dan Snyder is a terrible owner. Like, it is what it is, right? Like, they can't get out of their own way. Donald Sterling forever with the Clippers. I know that's basketball as opposed to football, but like, like ownership makes a big difference.
That really sucks when you're a fan of one of those teams that has a shitty owner.
Yep. And me being one of the owners of the Packers, like, that's part of the reason we're in. One of 2 million different owners, right? So, all right, guys. That was a lot of fun to talk about it. We went a little off subject at the end, but that's always a good time. If you can, click the thumbs up button if you're still listening while we were rambling for a little bit longer. That's appreciated. Head over to Twitter and give that bad boy a retweet. Let's give away some free stuff, and I want to wish you all the best of luck this week.
Thanks, guys.